Hello, everybody, and welcome back to AutoKnerd. All right, today we're going to be talking about kindness and caring in relation to profitability. So, how exactly do these things tie on in, and why should we all care in the first place? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. There's a massive reason you should care, and kindness is the driver, and caring are the drivers to your future success. And if you are unwilling to go ahead and implement these things, well, let's just say the whole idea of coffees for closers. Yeah, if you followed me at all, you'll know that I think that that's absolutely nuts and BS, because it's not. It's not for closers. Coffee is for those people that really go ahead and put their nose at the grindstone, work their tail off, and make sure that they can be successful, right? Those individuals that are in charge of their own future. And so we're going to dive into this whole kindness and caring thing. And with a little luck, you'll have a better idea of not only what I mean by the end of it, but a better idea of how to sit down with your customers and go, hey, listen, pay for it all, and how to get them to actually pay for all of it. And at the same time, crush it on those surveys. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so now that we are back, here's how this is going to flow. We're going to talk about love and kindness. We're then going to talk about a lot of examples along the way. But most importantly, I want you all to know that when it comes down to all the things that we are writing on over here at AutoKnerd, it's all about making sure that you have the ability to get the tools that you need to be more successful on the daily. So without further ado, let's talk about this thing. Now, when you look at your surveys from day to day, again, if you're new to the podcast, there's 23 other episodes that talk about what the core of this thing is, but I am all about automotive sales. Now, if you're not a part of automotive sales, that's just fine. You can take almost everything that I'm saying to any other business that's out there that you're in, and you can probably have pretty great success with it. So the kindness and caring piece is about looking at the customer and going, hey, you're not just a paycheck. Actually, if I consider you just a paycheck, I can leverage this even more. And this is not a trick. We are not pulling the world over the customer's eyes. If anything, we're helping them out in ways that they didn't expect. You see, the average person when they're shopping for an automobile, they come in and they're already incredibly nervous. They don't want to be shopping for a car. And it's kind of funny when you start to survey people and you go, hey, so what do you think about shopping for cars? Well, I absolutely hate it. Well, why do you absolutely hate it? Well, because they're liars, they're cheaters, they're taking everything from me. Well, hey, hold on. So all car salespeople are? Well, yeah. Well, hold on. I got my brain is hurting on this one. So if all car salespeople are liars and cheaters, then why are you driving a vehicle in the first place? Why would you torment yourself with going into the dealerships? Because here's kind of the funny thing about this, man, is that when you go ahead and you take upon this attitude that all sales consultants are liars and cheaters and blah, 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 the worst people on the planet, why is it that, the dealerships out there that pulled sales consultants out of the dealerships have all pretty much failed? All the one-price stores have all pretty much failed. The reason is that price doesn't matter. And there's so many people out there that are like, well, people only buy on price. They only buy on price. They only buy on price. No, they don't only buy on price. The price is like one of the last reasons why the customer actually goes ahead and they buy that car. And it should be one of the last reasons, right? Now, obviously, there's some pretty obvious things in there. I mean, if the customer's, in a $15,000 car territory and you're showing them a $50,000 car, shame on you. Crappy needs assessment. Go back to square one. But that's that thing. That's where it's at, right? It's at needs assessment. Needs assessment is that area that we have to spend a lot of time to make sure that that customer is happy. Right? That's the information gathering time. If we don't spend the time at needs assessment, getting the information from the customer, I have no idea who this person is, right? I have no idea what they want on the vehicle. I have no idea what their temperament is. I have no idea, how to hold this person's hand. And, back to this whole sales 101 thing. We're taught in sales 101, sit the customer down, get the basic information, go ahead, show them a car and sell it. Cool. But I noticed something. When I think back to my first day selling vehicles, the first few weeks of selling cars, I'm not going to say they were my most successful, But they were the ones that I feel like I didn't have any problems. And the reason for that is that when I look back on those first few weeks selling, I didn't know what the problems were to have them. And so that was kind of a time of bliss when you first start in this business. And as time progressed, I continued to look back on those first few weeks. And even today, I still look at them and I talk about them quite a bit. Those first few weeks, I didn't have the bad habits. I didn't have the structure. I didn't have the talk tracks. I just talked to people because they were people and I like talking to people. So if I saw somebody just walk up, say hi, and then just start talking about the car and talking about them and talking about them some more. And over time, I started to understand why people do business with other people. Now I heard it, the old Dale Carnegie's and things like that, is that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's obvious, but why is that? Why is that? Let's dig down further. What the heck is the point, right? We patronize the same places. We go to places that we absolutely love. And we stop going to places that we love because the customer service just ends up sucking eventually. So what is it that we do? Why do we do these things? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you might think. And it's that we hunt for happiness. And human beings we're wired for this. It's like somebody went in there and was like, okay, so the goal to a human being is to go ahead and simply just be happy. But somewhere along the lines, they're going to mess this whole thing up, and they're going to introduce all these ideas that are going to make sure that they have all the blockades in place to potentially never be happy, but always hunt for happiness. And that's what we do, right? We have all these blockades in place that tell us, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. And the funny part about that stuff is that the brave that do those things always succeed. It's weird. Well, they don't always succeed. They fail, and they try again, and then eventually they succeed. So we can't go ahead and simply say that, sales is about the customer coming in and we simply just sell them something. If you want to be the quintessential, closer, sure, customer comes in, they sit down, you sell them something. But if you want to be the person that's actually going ahead and bringing profit in, we have to understand how that profit works. Why is it that the customer's willing to go ahead and open up their pocketbook? Well, it comes down to the fact that they like you. And I'm not joking. It's very, very simple. You see, if you go ahead and you shortcut your needs assessment to the point where the customer's going ahead and and you walked them on the lot, you went out, you ran the pumpkin patch with them as though they were some sort of 5-year-old. And as you're walking along with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I like that car. But man, that one's got chrome wheels and it's got the chrome stuff and it's got all that leather inside. It's beautiful. And it's got the full glass roof. And look at that 85-inch touchscreen up front. Who the heck needs it? But I do. And so you go ahead and you say, okay, is that the one that you want? Yeah, absolutely. And then we go ahead and we start to drive it. The customer gets in the vehicle and we're like, yes, I'm going to make a big commission. And then they start driving it, and you're programmed to go ahead and say the stupidest things that we can possibly say of, hey, if this fits in your budget, will you go ahead and drive it away today? And the customer looks at you and goes, of course I will. Thinking to myself, it's $250 a month. So, but the thing is that we go ahead and put in this blockade of, hey, how about I go ahead and rush you through the deal and get you to the end because you apparently just want to get the heck out of here. Yeah, the customer doesn't want to be there, but we have a process, and the process is the process because it works. And so with this, sit down with the customer needs assessment. Never walk them on the lot. If you walk them on the lot, you're already doing your job wrong. There's no possible way that you can go ahead and look that person in the eye and actually get to know them. But over a desk, now we can go ahead and establish some common ground. And then if I do get around to actually walking you on the lot, which again, I don't agree with, now we can go ahead, we can get out there, and it's not that big of a deal. Because I know you, right? And I know what to show you. And if I don't know what to show you, what the heck's the point? So where does this caring thing come in? The caring thing comes in is that you took a step back. You said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to commit to learning about this person. And as I'm learning about this person, I'm going to compare what I learned about them to the vehicles that I have or the product that I am selling. And I'm going to figure out how their life integrates on into that product, right? So I call this transformational change, right? The idea of being able to take somebody, all the information about them, and then take their life and apply it to a vehicle, right? Not the parts, right? Customers come in and they're like, well, I want air conditioning, I want heat, I want the, latch system for my kid. Cool. All our cars got that. That's not a big deal. But what's going to make it special for you? Because this day and age, manufacturers are making vehicles that base models, heck, I just taught a class on a $22,000 vehicle that is loaded to the gills, far more than the vast majority of mid-range or even fully loaded vehicles that are out there. I read the stats on this thing. My jaw dropped. Wish I could tell you all about it. But when you look at things like this, we can give the customer the world and it will cost them. Or we can listen to what they say and I can show them the world. Meaning that you give me your information, right? How many kids you have, how big your home is, how big your driveway is, how many dogs you have, what you're doing, how far you're driving, how much money you spend on fuel. All of this stuff is the story of the customer's life. And then once I realize that I've hit something that makes that customer tick, once you hit that item that makes that customer tick, go ahead and allow them to keep speaking. Because as they keep speaking, they start trusting. It is a really weird thing. Once you get people talking, they don't shut up, right? And kind of a funny thing about myself is that if you ever have a chance to actually bump into me or you hit me up for training or something, you'll notice that once I get you talking, I don't say a word. Actually, people have told me I look like I tune out, and I do apologize. It's something I'm working on right now, but I just start taking notes. Mental notes, whatever it might be, writing it down. If I'm working with a client, I'm writing it all down. That way I remember everything because my memory is, well, it's never been awesome. But the thing is as I'm going ahead and doing this, I'm doing it because I care about them. Not because, it's this whole like love and give more thing. It's not like that at all. I'm paying attention to you so I can take what you're telling me and apply it and use your time incredibly effectively. I want you to be able to drive off in a vehicle that you're absolutely going to love. I want you to buy that computer. I want you to go ahead and contract me for I don't know, AI support, whatever it might be. But in the end, I want you to be able to be happy with the product that you have. And the only way for you to be happy with that product, the way that you have it, is for me to show you your world applied to that product. Okay. And so this could be going around and giving examples of the customer's life. This could be going ahead and sitting down and doing the math about, hey, here's how much you spend on gas, and here's how much car you can actually afford based on the total that you have. But here's how much I can save you if you switch to electric. And so with this, you just have to sit down and really do that needs assessment. And then once the customer realizes that, wait, I've been talking the whole time. I've been telling this person about my whole life. I don't know anything about them. Believe me, they will not sit down and think about this. You don't think about it with your bartender. Your bartenders ask you a billion questions along the time in your life. How much you know about them? You might know what they drive, but that's about it. So the thing is that conversation has led you to continue to come back over and over and over again. The ability for us to enjoy working with somebody is what keeps us going, right? This whole idea of this caring to get the information, the kindness to go ahead and extract the information bonds the customer with you. You see, trust is an earned thing. We all know this, but when it comes to trust, it can be built very quickly. And so when you sit down and if you are fairly new to this business and your manager was like, hey, listen to this, there's this thing that you will be hammered on over and over and over again. It's called rapport. And you're told, go out there and build rapport with your customer. And I remember one of my first managers saying it way back in the day. And I was like, what the heck's rapport? Well, just getting to like you. Okay. And so I just went out and started talking, and I did really, really well in those first few weeks. But as time progressed, I realized that, well, I want to get to the paycheck. I want my money. The customer obviously doesn't want to be here. Well, even though they don't want to be there, they still have goals that they need to succeed on, right? So they need to select their vehicle. They need to find a way to move forward. They need to make sure it's the right vehicle. And if they need to make sure that all of these ducks are in a row, the last thing that we want to do is get in the way of that. Actually, my job as a sales consultant, and this is something you don't see salespeople do. This is definitely something that you don't see closers do. Our job is to raise the customer's experience in a positive way to move them closer to saying yes to that deal. Our job is to give the customer the ability to afford themselves the permission to simply say yes. This is why I don't believe in closing. I believe closing is just a waste of time. It's the hat you wear for the last 4 days of the month when you really gotta get those counters on the board because you're looking at your draw going, one more week of a draw check and my wife's gonna kill me. Yeah, she will. or he, or whichever. But the thing is that you got to go ahead and work your tail off. With a little luck, your significant other is just as nice as mine and just says, hey, this is just kind of how it works sometimes, right? Selling cars in Wisconsin is not easy. But with this, take that time, sit down with a customer. Just like I said in the Great Reset, look at them as though they are a different individual from whom you just spoke with. It is very difficult to do, especially after you've had 4 or 5 people just kind of practically kick your teeth in on these things. But look at the customer. Know that they're different from everybody else. And as you notice what they want out of this deal, start jotting it down. Right? The caring part is that you're digging in. You want to know about that customer. I care about you enough that I'm not going to let you just go ahead and drive everything on the lot. And I'm not going to go ahead and allow you to simply go ahead and drive off in something that you don't enjoy. And the reason for that is that if you don't love that vehicle, you are going to get to negotiation and find a way to love it. And that means I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sit down with you. We're going to go back and forth a whole bunch of times. You're going to go, well, I was really around the $250, $350 a month area. Well, we just looked at a car there that is that's like $850 a month. So there's no way in on this green earth that is even gonna happen. Well, if you don't get it down $250, $300 a month, I'm just not going to go ahead and take it. So have you considered leasing? No, I never lease my vehicles. Well, here's the thing. You've been driving this old appliance for about 3 years here. You got about 27,000 miles on it. And oh, man, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're leasing right now. You're just paying twice as much as you normally should. I just like to buy my cars. Listen, you can't help everybody, but you can start at the beginning, right? And the beginning is where that fact finding happens. Now, many people will tell you, don't start negotiating pre-showing a car. No, you definitely don't. But ask the questions. How, when it comes to your car, what is the payment that you are paying on that thing that you just rolled on in here with? Gives you a pretty good idea what they were looking at before. And then when it comes to the trade, okay, do you feel you're in a negatively equitable situation here? Well, maybe. Okay, so let's start assessing trades before we start showing the product. Trust me, if you want to iron out your life when it comes to the whole car sales thing, learn who the customer is and get all the information up front. Right? Now, you don't need to negotiate with them. You don't need to tell them the value of their vehicle before you show them anything. What you simply just need to know is, hey, if you got $5,000 negative equity, 10, 20 grand of negative equity, oh my gosh, could you believe that? Kicking around. I want to know that. That's going to change our payment. If you got 20 grand in negative equity for 60 months, you're looking at a $400 a month increase in your monthly payment. That's nuts. But with this, we have to get everything in line. So like the Great Reset, look at the customer as though they are somebody new. You've never met that individual before. They're not aggravated, right? The past 4 customers kind of ticked you off. Don't let that bleed into this 5th one. All right. If you have to, walk out of the dealership, take a couple laps, come on back, and then go ahead and work with the customer, right? So get that out of the way. Reset, you're new. I'm talking to you. And then once you start talking to them, get that genuine caring to start bubbling up, right? Because that's your paycheck. If you're not going to care about your paycheck, then why the heck are you on the showroom floor in the first place? Seriously, that's your money. That's your paycheck, right? Don't be rude to it. Get the information. The customer is willingly looking to give it to you if you build the trust, if you build the rapport. And remember, my rule number 1, the more you get them talking about their personal life, the more they just start trusting you. I mean, that's a very old rule, and I've always kept it as my number 1. So as the customer sits down, if it takes you half an hour, 45 minutes of needs assessment, look at what you've been talking about. Because here's some things the customer doesn't want to talk about. They don't want to really talk about the car when they sit down. Now, I know that sounds weird, but the customer has been researching vehicles, driving vehicles, talking to sales consultants, and let's be honest, your average sales consultant out there is fairly new within the past year or they're under a year, and they've essentially been taught, go get the paycheck, right? So if you are fairly new to the business, go ahead, take a step on the showroom floor, reset, look at the customer and go, hey, you're brand new. I'm going to care for you. So now get that caring piece in. So the caring piece, again, as I said, is all about going ahead and getting the information, right? And as that trust is built, we get that information. And then when it comes to the kindness part is being able to reiterate that information to the customer in a respectful way. This is not easy for a lot of people, especially if you've been in this business a while and you're kind of bruised. You see, the kindness factor comes on in when the customer looks at us and says something that we don't necessarily jive with. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this podcast. If the customer says something that we don't jive with, that's okay. It's 100% okay, because we don't need to have an argument right there. You see, this particular topic was inspired by my wife and my really good buddy of ours who was over one day, and they started arguing about just something political. And it's an important topic, and I don't feel like jumping into it here. But as they're arguing, I noticed that neither one of them is backing down. Now, here's the thing. Neither one of them were selling anything. One is a sales consultant or manager of some kind. And then the other is my amazing wife. But when it comes, and she's also in sales too, when it comes to like lumber and things like that. So the thing is that these two individuals were talking, and neither one was backing down from the fight. This is where I started to look up from my phone, and I was like, what is going on here? And I'm kind of observing this thing out of the corner of my eye the whole time. And I realized that they both dug in and said, I'm right. How the heck does that help? Right? He left that evening, and she all of a sudden was, kind of like, what the heck, man? That wasn't cool. And then they went ahead and patched it up about a week later. A problem here, and that I noticed, is that this is something that we do all the time. All the time, is that we wear our arrogance on our sleeves, and the customer will go ahead and say, well, this about this car, like this car has 20 more horsepower than this thing over here, and that's not right. Well, here's the thing with this, is that where do we get the ability to employ the arrogance to correct the customer? Think that through. Mainly what I'm telling you is that when it comes to the customer saying things that are factually incorrect, but they believe them, if it does not play into that deal at all, why bother correcting them? You're not lying to them. Now, I do realize this. If the customer is saying something that's so outlandish that you need to correct them, then yes, absolutely do it. But by not going ahead and confirming what they're saying, you're not lying. You see, if the customer already sold themselves on something and they're super jazzed about that product, and you're like, well, the thing is 650 horsepower, and they're like, well, I heard it was 660. Well, that was very interesting information that you must have heard of. Well, yes, it was. All right, cool. I didn't correct them. I at that point, if you got 650 plus horsepower, what's an extra 20, right? So, but in this particular scenario, I don't need to crush the customer's emotional state and crap on all of their research, because that's exactly what they're going to look at you and thinking. They're like, you went ahead and took all of my research and you pulled out a silver platter and you went ahead and you just killed it. Just killed all my research. And then you gave me more information, which is not quite what my research is saying, and now you lost a deal. We've all heard from people, hey, don't give out too much information. This is exactly what we mean, is that when somebody goes ahead and they're spitting stuff out of their mouth, if it's the customer, who cares? If that's what sold them, cool, right? If the dream of going ahead and getting into that vehicle is all that they have, take the caring part and throw it out there, right? Hey, listen, I care about you. Do you want to drive the thing? Oh yeah, I absolutely do. Cool. Let's go ahead and just drive it. See if you love it then, right? What your research was, I do not care. It got you in the door. I'm going to have you tell me about your research so I know kind of where you stand, and we could still have some dialogue and know where to springboard this conversation. But when it comes to the customer spitting out something small here and there, don't be that type A narcissist that will go ahead and look at the customer and go, no, it's not like that. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter. Right? Either A, the customer's going to find out, or B, they're never going to discover. And I'm not telling you to lie to the customer. I'm just telling you to pick your battles here. Because with this whole kindness thing, kindness is about accepting the possibility that, well, if I go ahead and correct them, I might be moving myself away from the deal. I might be moving them away from their dream. Now, if they choose to believe that that vehicle has more power than I said it does, that's kind of on them. But if I have it written down, like, here's our policy, right? If they quoted that wrong, I might want to repeat my policy or legalese back to them. There is a line here, but do go ahead and consider this. if it doesn't matter, if it's not going to change anything, if both parties, you and the person that you're talking to, are both saying, I'm right, don't let I'm right come out of your mouth. Just look at the customer and go, okay, it doesn't matter. At some point, and say this, leave that in the back of your head, the whole it doesn't matter part. But the point is, the customer is going to have their argument. They're going to bring it up to you. If they are super jazzed about it, pick your battles. Because whenever you tell a customer no, or that they were wrong, you start eroding at that trust. And if it's something that really doesn't play a strong role into the customer buying the vehicle, quite honestly, I don't care what it is. Cool, I'm glad they got you in the door. That's all I can do about it. If the customer opens up a brochure and goes, oh, it's actually 20 horsepower less. Well, yeah, I was going to correct you on it, but you had a huge smile on your face. I didn't want to go ahead and shatter that. But I knew at some point in time, you would go ahead and figure that out anyways, right? You didn't lie to them. You didn't lie to them at all. And they know that, right? You have the trust, you have the rapport to have a candid conversation. And now the customer loves you more for it, right? Because you've moved them closer. And at the same time, they learn something on their own, all right? So when it comes to loving kindness, take a step back. Right? People that are coming in the door, they're humans. And with the humans coming in, we got to have some basic love. We need to go ahead and have some basic kindness that we can throw on over their way. If we don't have some basic love and we don't have some basic kindness to throw over your way, you're having a crappy day and nobody's going to want to deal with you. Seriously. If you're not kind, if the person that you're talking to is not kind, you just want to get the hell out of there. And why wouldn't you? And the same thing holds true with your customer. If they're talking to you and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is just like, I can feel the gross just coming off of them. They're going to want to leave. And if they don't leave and you got that vehicle and you didn't make some sort of common ground where you can laugh together, have an enjoyable time, the customer is going to get to negotiation and they're going to build the value the only way that they can by you going ahead and saying, hey, I need to do a TO because the manager comes out, does inventory control, blows the vehicle out, and congratulations, you got a counter on the board, but you also got a mini. So if profitability is judged by motivation, and motivation is what gets people to buy things. And a motivation can be eroded quickly based on things like telling the customer no when they really don't have to, having an argument when you really don't have to, or it can be eroded by simply not caring to get the information to elevate the customer's purchasing experience to the point where they can no longer afford themselves the ability to say no because you have painted the picture of their world on that car so well because you have the information. If you do that, your profit margin is going to go up. And look at your life. Here's an example. You go across town and you're about to buy a product. And as you're over there, you're buying that product that supports your hobby that you absolutely love. You can go ahead and you walk on in and you talk to the sales consultant and you're like, dude, you're kind of a jerk. At least this is what you're saying in your brain. And the person they're just acting like an arrogant insert words on the other side of that table. And as you're talking to them, you realize that, oh my gosh, man, you're kind of a jerk, but the product that you're selling is $100 less than what it should be. Well, I should be pulling out my wallet and just buying this thing right here, shouldn't I? Right? I can get out of here. I don't need to talk to you anymore. But at the same time, I don't want to support you because, again, you're kind of a jerk. So we go ahead, we pack up our pride. We walk out the door. Didn't want to start an argument with that guy. He's got enough stuff going on. But we realized pretty quickly that the reason that he discounted his product is because nobody's going in there. It's the only thing that he has to sell on. He doesn't realize that, price isn't what sells. People's motivations, the things that transform their lives, that transcend those feelings of happiness and move us closer and closer and closer to this whole idea that life can be great, right? And we bubble that happiness on up. So now you go ahead and you head across town. You head across town and you're like, listen, this other place supports my hobby. I'm going to go over there. They're a little bit more expensive. But you go on in and you've never been there. You only heard stories about how they're like always expensive. And as you go ahead and you talk to them, you're like, you're actually really nice. Yeah, I jive. We click. And you start talking to them and you start talking to them some more. And as you're talking to them, you realize that you've been there for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and you're having a great time. You want to support this place. You realize why everything is at MSRP or potentially a little bit higher. And in this place, you notice that, oh my gosh, that item that I want is $50 more than MSRP. You know what? I really want to support this person. I want to see them succeed in life. So you go ahead and you buy it. And then think about this one. Now you go ahead and you need to go and buy another thing to help that hobby out. Where are you going to go? You're going to go over to store A where the guy was a jerk? I mean, yeah, if he sold everything at discount prices, that's great, but he was still a jerk. Or are you going to go over to the place that life's going to be easy? You can walk in, have an enjoyable time, be like, hey, how's it going, man? And give yourselves high fives and, really kind of, just again, have an enjoyable time. And then buy the other product again, even for more money. It's costing you more. But that's not what is important to the average person. The average person invests in things to go ahead and put a smile on their face. And if they can have a smile on their face when buying it, that's what drives profitability up. Because once the motivation's in there, the wallet comes out, and you cannot stop somebody from going ahead and buying something. Think it through. Think about your own life, the way that you buy things, and how that goes. So I told you I'd incorporate a little bit of news along the way here. So there are some crazy things going on in the industry right now. So I'm not going to get down the weeds in the politics here, but obviously we know the Trump administration is about to take office, and Elon is right in there doing something. We have no idea what his positioning really is out there, but the funny part about this is that Elon has stated many times along the way is that, well, when that EV incentive is gone, we're going to be a much better state. He's right. Actually, when the $7,500 incentive is gone for EVs, Tesla will be in a better state. The reason for this is that a few of the Teslas don't receive that incentive. And other manufacturers are receiving the incentive, and it's making their vehicles very price competitive. Now, price does play a role when anxieties are high. So since anxieties are high with EV and people are like, well, how can I save a bit of money on my taxes? Or, oh, hey, look, you're going to hand me a check for $7,500 to buy your car. Yes, I'll go ahead and take it. I mean, that's kind of hard to say no to. But when it comes to this average person going ahead and coming through the front door, average person comes in, they look at the $7,500, and they're like, it's okay. That's quite literally what they're saying. They don't care about it anymore. And the people that do care about it don't even know how it's incorporated into the deal. Well, I'm going to lease the vehicle. Well, we're going to put that $7,500 toward the lease. Well, what does that even mean? Well, it's kind of funny. You notice how you didn't have to put any money down? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. We got you. You don't worry. So with the $7,500, when it is gone, and it probably will be shortly after Doge is installed, but it's not going to be the end of the world, actually. It's not going to help gas cars one bit, in my personal belief. Cash for Clunkers back in the day, and I'm rewinding the clock a lot to like 2008, but when Cash for Clunkers came out, Cash for Clunkers was all about getting, at least they said, getting the old emission gas guzzlers off the road. Cool. Get the emission gas guzzlers off the road. And then getting new cars out there. Well, the thing is with Cash for Clunkers, it was an expensive program. Didn't really work out. It got the old cars off the road, which I guess wasn't the worst thing in the world. So those old boats were finally gone. But the incentives eventually, when it came to things like Cash for Clunkers, was just another thing, right? It wasn't anything that made people go, ooh, hey, I will trade in everything and go ahead and get into this. Actually, a lot of people became incredibly defensive that, wait, you're going to go ahead and crush my car? Because that was one of the policies of Cash for Clunkers. Actually, I remember watching dealerships drill holes inside of perfectly good cars, drill holes right through the engine just so it made the engine inoperable. So the reason I'm telling you all this, the automotive industry always goes through its ebbs and flows. It always is that anchor that will change other industries as well. So whenever anything changes in the automotive industry, we see this ripple effect because of how banking works, through housing, through tech, through everything. And they're all interconnected. But I don't think you're going to see anything crazy happen. Every single manufacturer right now is coming out with new electrified vehicles. They're coming out with new gas-powered vehicles. They're coming out with new hybrids and plug-in hybrids. And that's great. However you want to get around town, perfect. But when it comes to the EV incentives, if you are a really big EV superstore or something like that exists currently, I wouldn't worry too much, right? And what I would do, though, is I would start sitting down with those customers and figuring out, again, who they are. Get that whole love, kindness, caring thing going. Because, again, people that know, like, and trust you are going to buy a car from you. And if you don't believe me, this is going to be a shout out to some of my friends out there. So if you don't believe me, walk into a Mini dealership, walk into a Subaru dealership. If you're in the South, a Subaru dealership, because here's the thing, Mini's slow. I mean, it's all over. They're slow. Count how many you see in a day. And then go on over to Subaru dealership in the South, right down the street from me here in Florida. There's nobody on the server floor. They're all right next door at the store that they're dueled up on. Walk in there, sit down, talk to a sales consultant, and all of a sudden you're going to notice that sales consultant is treating you like gold. And if they're not, well, they're just not doing a good job. But go ahead and sit down with that individual and just watch the whole process unfold. Now, I know some of you are like, well, I don't do secret shopping because it's not cool and I wouldn't want somebody to do it to me. How would you ever improve? Just saying. Get up, go do a little bit of secret shopping. Because when you sit down with that individual, you'll notice that the dealers that are slow have very high profitability because their sales consultants take a slow amount of time and they get to know that customer. The dealers that are selling cars like crazy always end up at the bottom of sales satisfaction indexes simply because they don't have time to sit there and learn who the customer is. But here's the magical part, is that if you are a sales consultant and you are at a dealership where you can go ahead and sell at volume, once you find that sweet spot of, I got the right questions in place, I know what to ask, I'm comfortable with a sit-down needs assessment, I can take good notes. Once you have that ironed out, imagine being at a volume store where you can dig down deep, learn who that customer is, and show them the world on that car, and get the customer motivated to the point where no matter what you say, they are leaving with that thing, right? They came in at $350 a month, now they don't care. Right? $600, cool, I'm taking it, driving off. They don't care because you have them so jazzed up and motivated to do it. And you do this with your hobbies. All right. So anyways, that is it for today. I'll get into more of the minutia on news stuff in the future. But as far as that goes, feel free, go ahead, please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. That sure does keep you motivated. In addition to that, I'll try to post more often. I know I've been a little slow on these things, but I've had tech issues, traveling, work, contracts. I mean, things I just got to get done. But with all that being said, thank you very much for listening on in. And please go ahead, subscribe to the podcast. I will talk to you all next week. Have a great one.